Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we're going to be talking about how to start collecting Nighthaunt, so the most spookiest of all the ghosts in the mortal realms. And what we're going to do in this video, in case you haven't seen one of my how to start videos before, we're going to go over things like what you should get for your first buys. We're then going to go over the Start Collecting box, this army has got one. And then we're going to go over, for this army, the other ways you can start it, because Nighthaunt's a bit of an exception. Yes, it has a Start Collecting box, but it's not, as I would think, a great Start Collecting box, and we'll go into that in a bit. And then there's other ways to get into this army, i.e. there's other ways to get these models at a bit of discount or like bundle boxes, etc. So we'll go through those and talk about that. And then we'll have at the end what I believe are auto-includes, in my opinion, that you want to have in your army when you're buying and building it. And then also things that I think are almost auto-includes, so something that are worth considering for most of your army lists you want to be creating. What I will say throughout this video is if there's anything that you disagree with what I said, put it in the comments down below and then I'll be interested to hear your points and why you think I've missed something out. Also, if you had a question about how to start Nighthaunt, what I haven't answered during this video, leave in the comments down below and I'll be more than happy to try and help you out best I can. So, with that aside, the only other thing I want to say before we get started with this video is going to be a massive shout out to my YouTube members and my patrons. Because of these people, I can continue making videos to try and help people get into Age of Sigmar and continue their Age of Sigmar journey because of these absolutely fantastic people. So my top supporters are going to be my Morgasts, that's going to be Johnathan H, Filq, Bleed Red and Christopher G. Thank you so much for supporting the channel on that tier. It's making a huge difference and it really is helping. And then going on to my vampires, which are going to be Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, Ronni H, Doug P, SpareBear, Christopher H, and Northdrop, who's actually a new patron. So thank you very much for deciding to join a Patreon. I'm glad you made that decision and it's really going to help the channel. And a massive thank you to all my vampires as well, because of that tier you're giving a lot of support to the channel, so a huge shout out to you. And then of course my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, Christopher C, James S, Steve T, and Robin S. Thank you so much for your continued support. If anyone would like to support the channel in that way, you'll find a join button next to the subscribe button. You can press to become a YouTube member, and you'll also find a link to my Patreon on the top of the down description below. But we can get into all that later, because we're going to be talking about how to start Nighthaunt. And the first thing we're going to talk about is what should be your first buys. And for this, it's going to be the Battletome. Now, this is how I always start how to start collecting videos. I do it usually as the Battletome and the scenery piece. I know that sounds like a lot of standard, but really that's because it's standard. You want to buy the book with all the rules in. Above with it actually just having all the rules on for you to how to play your army, it's got all the narrative that's going to get your creative juices flowing of how you want to play the army as well, and how you want to really sort of like theme your army and the aesthetic behind it and what sort of narrative you want to have to drive you through having that army. So you may be wondering if you're particularly new. Well, all the rules for my models, you know, Chain Rasp Hordes and Blade Geist and I don't know, Spirit Host, everything else, they're on the app for Age of Sigmar that I can go on and I can get for free, or I can download them from the Games Workshop website. Yes, you can. However, this book is going to give you so much more rules for your army, and not like, oh, more rules to learn, it's going to be overcomplicated, you know, give it time if you're particularly new. But what it's going to do is it's going to unlock things like the allegiance for Nighthaunt, which we talked about allegiances and sub-allegiances, so go check out that video recently if you're still unsure what they are. And that's going to give you like extra abilities to give your heroes, it's going to give you extra spells to choose from, and it's going to give you, above everything else, just more synergy to make the most out of the collection of models that you want to start collecting. What I will say as well is you can see that it says first buy and then the Nighthaunt Battletome on the screen. This Nighthaunt Battletome has been out for about, I want to say 3 years now. So bear in mind that there could be a new book coming out at some point in the future. We have no idea if there is going to be, but we know some way off in the future there will be. Maybe not the near future, but some way beyond that there will be. So just bear in mind, guys, that if you see this book and it's, I don't know, 2 years from now, there's probably a newer Battletome. So buy that one. But the statement I'm making about why you want to buy the Battletome and those rules first is 100% going to be genuine in 2 years from now. And if it's not, I'll be highly surprised. The other thing I usually say when I talk about buying a Battletome is I also say buy the scenery piece. Now, unfortunately, Nighthaunt currently don't have a scenery piece. However, they do have endless spells, and endless spells are something that are very often to just go, I'll buy the Battletome, I'll buy the Sigmar piece, and then I'll buy the endless spells, because it just feels like a nice package, and Games Workshop usually does like a bundle deal of it, where it's not actually any money saving, but it's just in a bundle and a one-click buy on their website. But really the spells aren't always needed, and in this case with Nighthaunt, I do believe that Nighthaunt spells, they're endless spells that is, so if you are a bit new, it's those models for spells you see, like a big scythe, there's like a chest with like skulls coming out of it, and then there's like a big egg timer. And with those endless spells, I don't really feel like they're that important. I particularly don't think they're very good. If someone out there who's listened to this goes, what am I talking about? They are really good. Please explain that to me in the comments, because I'll be happy to learn best I can. But yes, so that is why I would say go for the Battletome first before you actually do anything exciting by buying actual models. And with that, now let's actually go on to the actual models. And what we're going to be talking about, like I mentioned earlier at the start of the video, is the ways to get into Nighthaunt, because there are so many ways, and in particular if you're a bit new, it can be quite confusing. And even if you've been in the hobby for a couple of years or something like that, I know when I put my poll up to see what you guys wanted, Flesh Eater Courts, how to start collecting video, or Nighthaunt, there was quite a few people who said Nighthaunt would be better because it's quite as not straightforward, shall we say, how to start it, because the Flesh Eater Court one, because you could basically just buy the Start Collecting box over and over again for that army, but there are other ways to get into it, but we'll leave that for another video, because with Nighthaunt there's lots of different ways, and it can seem a bit confusing if you don't really understand the army that well. So, the first one we're going to be talking about is the actual Start Collecting box they have. So, the Start Collecting box is going to cost you £55. Again, if it's in dollars or something like that, I'm not going to do every currency around the world, apologies, but £55 in the UK. And separately it would cost you £80. So what do you get? You're going to get yourself 2 battle line. So this is going to be 3 spear hosts and 5 hex race. Now if you look in as just like standard, I don't know, General's Handbook, and you look at the points for the battle line of the spear host and the hex race, it may not say they're straight out battle line, but in a Nighthaunt army they are battle line. So that's why I put them as just standard battle line there. And then you get 1 behemoth, which is a mortis engine. Now the mortis engine cannot be taken in Nighthaunt, which really infuriates me, because this box is not called Start Collecting Nighthaunt, it's Start Collecting Malignant, or Malignant? It's called something like that, I think it's however it's pronounced. Anyway, what this is essentially what Games Workshop called Nighthaunt before they released an army, and then they just never updated it, which I think is incredibly lazy. It's very misleading that you feel like you can buy this box and boom, great start of the Nighthaunt army, because you can't. And yes, you may be saying, well, in Legion of Grief you can take the Mortis engine, and Legion of Grief is better than Nighthaunt. Everything else, and if you're a bit unknown about what Legions of Grief is, it's kind of like Legions of Nagash crossed with Nighthaunt. But this is how to start Nighthaunt video, not how to start Legions of Grief, okay? So that Mortis engine cannot be taken. Now, the other argument for it is, well, actually, if you get the Mortis engine, then you've got like 3 Banshees you can make from it. You can make maybe a couple of Khan Race out of the thing, and then you got lots of stuff for the bits box. Of course you do, but if you're a new person looking to start Nighthaunt, you don't really want to be cutting up this big lovely model. You want to be able to field it in your army. So I don't really like the argument with that too much, to be honest, that, you know, oh, it's a good thing because you can cut it up and use it in different things. You can do, but that's not what a Start Collecting box should be, in my honest opinion. Yeah, so I particularly don't like this, and I think it was one of the first Start Collecting boxes they ever came out with, so they've had ages to change it, and they really haven't. So yeah, I particularly have a gripe with this, so I don't like it. Also, I think Hex Race, when I look at them, they look like they have a lot of potential, but they've always failed me when I've used them on the table. Now, that might be a case of I've rolled badly, or maybe taking units of like 5 or 10 of them isn't enough. You need to take them in units of 15 or something, but I don't think that's the case. But if that is the case, let me know that in the comments as well. And then the Spirit Hosts, I like them, but they're just too swingy. So basically how Spirit Hosts work is that they each have 6 attacks. So even a unit of 3, that's 18 attacks. They hit on 5s, which isn't good, but any 6s they get to hit is a mortal wound. So you'll find they'll just decimate the enemy with mortal wounds, or they'll do nothing. And oftenly, it's the nothing variation. Now, I know there's ways to give them extra attacks, and there's ways to buff their hitting, and anything like that, but still, they just feel not great for that, but I think they work quite well as a tar pit, because they're quite hard to get rid of, and there's ways to actually replenish whole models of them back. So yeah, that's my thoughts with them, and that's my overall thoughts of the Start Collecting box. If you know what you're doing with Nighthaunt, it's not It's not bad because you can cut up that Mortis engine, but because I really just don't like the idea of doing that. I mean, I kit bash things all the time. I cut things up all the time, but I don't really feel like it's very welcoming to a new person, which I kind of feel like Start Collecting boxes are almost aimed towards. Now, I know experienced people buy them. I buy Start Collecting boxes. I'm not new, but I really feel like it's misleading quite strongly from Games Workshop, and they've had plenty of time to sort it out, and they haven't. So, yeah, not a fan of the Start Collecting box, but don't worry, because there are many other ways to start Nighthaunt. Going on to the Mortal Realms magazines. And you may be asking yourself, what are they? And I have done a whole video on this, so you can check that out if you'd like to on my channel, but I'll give you a summary. So basically, it's a subscription-based service from Hatchet Workshops in association with Games Workshop. So what does this mean? So basically, you pay a subscription. Every month, you get given 4 magazines. It's like 1 a week, basically, but they all come to you at the end of the month. And in those magazines, yeah, there's lore and there's stories, which is cool. But the main thing about it is going to be the models you get with the magazines, which turn out to be, I mean, I haven't really done any maths here at all, but I've been subscribing to this thing for about a year now, and I've probably paid 2/3 the price of how much it would cost normally. Sometimes better, sometimes worse, but on average, probably like 2/3 of the price as it is brand new from Games Workshop. And this practically is buying it brand new from Games Workshop. So it's good, it's reliable. There were some problems with Hatchet Workshop at the start, but it's all sorted out now. I haven't had really any problems since. And the models are so cheap in comparison. And what you can see on the screen now is essentially what you get from it. So there's some Stormcast armies that you can't really see because you're going to get Stormcast from here as well, but you're going to get Nighthaunt as well. And you're going to be given a very large collection, a nice mixture of stuff by the end of it, and you're going to get a load of scenery as well. The only thing is, though, is the Mortal Realms magazines are not available in every country, so apologies if it's one of your countries that's not available in. However, what I will say is that the Mortal Realms magazines are 100% the best way to get into Nighthaunt, even if you don't subscribe, but you just go online and, like, for example, I'm not sponsored by them, but there's a website called Forbidden Planet, which I know is one where you can buy like individual magazines from, or sometimes you can go into your news agents, like over here in the UK, like WH Smith, something like that, and you can pick up a Mortal Realms magazine there. Like, for example, there is going to be one coming out in April, so soon, and it's got 2 Jacq.l lines in it for £7.99. I know that's not Nighthaunt, but you can convert it up to be a death thing if you wanted to. But the fact that you get 2 of them for £7.99, I believe it is, when I believe 3 of them cost like £35, you can just see the sort of savings you get, and you'll see that for the Nighthaunt. Like, there was lately 5 Hexray / Black Knights for £7.99 as well. So you can see how really good discount it can be. Also to say is that you will be getting all the main leaders from it, so you know the cool 3 main characters, stuff like that. Nice, you know, painting projects there. But unfortunately, you're not going to get a black coach from it. For some reason, they've got the Mortis engine in there, which is because they just chucked a Start Collecting box into this. But the Mortal Realms magazines are really good, and it's also massively devalued the army. So if you think like, oh, I want to go in this army, it's been devalued, what does that mean? I don't mean like negatively for you, apart from if you've already got a Nighthaunt army, then this Mortal Realms magazine's come out, it's going to be harder for you to sell it. But if you're watching this video, I presume that's not you. So the good thing about the army being devalued is that if you look at 10 Chainrust Hordes to buy brand new from Games Workshop, £25. When I bought them in the first edition of this magazine, it was £2.99 for 10 of them, where it'd usually be £25, and I got 3 secretaries as well with it, and I got a magazine. And because of that, loads of people, including myself, not going to lie to you, bought that magazine multiple times. So that means that a lot of people bought a lot of Chainrust because it was very good value. Some people decided to sell those models off to try and make profit, and I don't think that really went very well, and those people got basically trolled because they were trying to scalp all the time, trying to make as much money as they could. However, where we are now, a lot of people maybe decided Nighthaunt wasn't for them, or they just kept these magazines for ages and they go, you know what, I'm not going to use them, why don't I sell them? So that means that the second-hand market for Nighthaunt, which you would think is a brand new army, or 3-year-old army, but you know, still a new army, Age Sigmar army, it'd be quite hard to get these for a good price second-hand. Nighthaunt is probably the cheapest army you can buy at second-hand because of the Mortal Realm magazines, or the cheapest Age of Sigmar army, shall I say, because of the Mortal Realm magazines. It's the same for Stormcast as well, with some of the stuff there, because there's so many people that just subscribed to this because it was a really good deal and maybe decided that Nighthaunt wasn't for them. So definitely look on things like Facebook groups and things like eBay and stuff like that, And to be honest with you, I know that doesn't really sound like it comes into the Mortal Realm magazines going on about buy, sell, swap pages on Facebook and eBay and all that sort of thing. But it really does, because it just ties in, because the second-hand market for Nighthaunt has just basically filled with supply more than the demand for it. So you should be able to get it for a pretty good price compared to if you were to walk into a Games Workshop and buy the models. Like, the biggest things I could say about to do when it comes to starting Nighthaunt is don't go into Games Workshop and pick up a box of 10 Chainrust 4s for £25. If you already have done that and you haven't opened the box, return it straight away. But if you already opened the box and you're halfway through building it, then it's a bit sad, but should have done your research better, is what I'm going to say with that one. But yeah, Mortal Realm magazines is going to be hands down my best way to say to you guys to start it. But I am aware that not everyone in the world can get the Mortal Realm magazines. More countries are getting them as we go on, but not everyone can get them. So I'm not just going to go, right, Mortal Realm magazines, end of discussion, because I don't think that's fair. So we're going to look at the other boxes you can get them in, which are going to be things like Soul Wars, which are a big box that we'll get to right now. And then there's also like 2 smaller versions of that. So firstly, looking at the Soul Wars. And this is the big box set to kickstart Age of Sigmar 2 that Games Workshop came out with. What I will say, it's a very good value box set. It was better value before the Mortal Realms magazines, like I just mentioned, because that's the best value. But it was very good then, and it's still quite good now. The only thing I will say about this, though, disclaimer, we're not going to really be talking about the Stormcast stuff. You know, you get a second army there, basically. And then talking about the stuff that's also important to mention, the core book. So the core rule book, this big rule book where you get loads of lovely lore in it. That's going to be there forever. You know, that story isn't really going to change. You know, it's interesting to read, and there's lots of maps and things like that, which is very cool. But what I will say is that this book is going to get replaced some point soon. There's incredibly strong amount of rumours at the moment that there's going to be Age of Sigmar 3 coming out, so the 3rd edition of Age of Sigmar this summer. So I'm a little bit hesitant when I say buy this box, because if you think, well, I'm getting the rulebook as well, so I don't need to buy the rulebook. To be honest, there's probably going to be a new rulebook coming very soon, so maybe get made redundant, unless you just want to read it for the lore, then you've got that as well. But what I will also say is I very rarely refer to the core rulebook when I play Age of Sigmar. Now, maybe that's because I played Age of Sigmar so much. I have a lot of the knowledge in my head and I don't have to look at the book. But I honestly, I think after about a year this book came out, there was like the new General's Handbook, and there was like much more rules updated than that. So the core rulebook is not very useful for rules, but it's got a nice narrative in it. So we got that out of the way. So don't really think like, oh, I'm getting the rulebook, that adds to the value of this box. Not massively. But you are going to get 20 Chainrust Swords, which, like we mentioned, would cost you £50 separately from Games Workshop, or Mortal Realms magazines, £6 when that came out, or maybe even a bit less. You then also get, more importantly though, key heroes. So you're going to get a Knight of Shrouds and a Ethereal Steeds, who is particularly good. You're going to get your Guardian of Souls, who's more important. It's a very good wizard in your army. When I say really good wizard, mainly just your basic wizard who's important, and also is a good buff piece. And then you're going to have a Spirit Torment, who's particularly a good buff piece as well for your army. And then you're going to get a Lord Executioner, who looks very cool, doesn't really do anything for your army. But also where an annoyance comes in with this army is that you get 5 Glaive Wraith Stalkers, which are the ghosts that have like horse heads and stuff, those looking ones. Now, I believe they come in units of 4. I think it might be 5 to be fair, but I believe it's 4. So you've got 1 too many, but I might be wrong on that. But what I do know is that when you get units of 4 Grimghast Reapers, that means nothing because you buy them in units of 10. So even if you buy, I don't know, 2 Soul Wars, you have 8. That's not enough for 10. So it's particularly annoying. But what I would do if you were to buy Soul Wars and you had these extra Grimghast Reapers, which I do, what I'm going to do is convert them up, because I've got a friend of mine called Luke, who has been on the channel before when he comes on and we discuss a lot of the news like we recently did with the Soulblight Gravelords release. And then also he was on the channel for when we discussed why play Nighthaunt. So if you're watching this video, chances are you watched that one as well. And what he did is he converted these models up to be the chain guard. So that's the people who lob the chains about and the locks and stuff like that. And they've got like a locked, face helmet and things like that. And the reason why they're good is because they help to buff and they work well with the Spirit Torment and everything. And they can be quite hard to get separately. So it's an example of what you can do to make up these extra models that are annoying in number, but it does annoy me with that number. But Soul Wars, I would say, is a good value box if you don't have access to the Mortal Realms magazines, or you're not finding any like good value second-hand Nighthaunt out there. Just bear in mind though that things like the rules from it, like the core rulebook, will be getting replaced soon. But what I also will say just quickly is that you do also get the Stormcast army. So like these aren't like two massive armies to be playing like 2,000 points with and stuff, don't get me wrong. But if there's two of you who really wants to get into the game and you love the Nighthaunt and your buddy really likes the Stormcast for God knows what reason, then this will be a good box set for you. Because yeah, there will be a new box set coming out soon, probably with the new core rulebook, but it probably won't be Nighthaunt. It may be Soul Black Gravegods, but it probably won't be another like updated Nighthaunt release. So yes, it would be quite a good box set to go halves on. Particularly how a lot of the heroes from this box set you can't buy separately without buying them separately, basically from the Mortal Realm magazines, which you would think, you know, for a 3-year-old box set, Games Workshop would be selling the models separately now for the heroes. But, you know, they decided to not do that either, which is really, really nice and generous of them. So making people able to buy a whole box set just to get things like a Spirit Torment or a Guardian of Souls for their armies. Then we move on to the Tempest of Souls, which is £50. So again, this is a discount box set. It's cheaper to buy this box set than buy these models individually from Games Workshop. And on the Nighthaunt side, unfortunately though, you do get those odd numbers of the 4 Grimglass Reapers, the 5 Glaive Stalkers, and then the 10 Chainmass Hordes, which is actually an eligible unit you can start fielding straight away. And then you get a bunch of Stormcast stuff. The problem is though, is the hero you get from this is the Lord Executioner, which is the worst hero in potentially all of Nighthaunt in my honest opinion. So I'm not a massive fan of this box set, to be honest with you. I think you can buy all of this cheaper online. The only reason I would recommend this box set again is if you and your buddy were looking to start Age of Sigmar and one of you liked the Nighthaunt and the other one liked the Stormcast Eternals. And I know that sounds like a very short review of the box set, but that's really kind of what it is. It's Soul Wars, but a bit smaller. And yeah, it's a difficult one because I say all this stuff and it's almost like, well, I can say to you, you know, buy and build and paint what you want, you know. If you're not bothered too much about the rules and all that sort of thing, you know, just buy the models you like. And if you like these models, Tempest of Souls is great for you. But what I will say is that I think a lot of people do care about the rules. More than they'll like to admit. So I am honest here when I tell you that I don't think it's a fantastic box set, apart from the value you get from it, rather than buying all those models separately. But it's really hard because the Mortal Realms magazines, like I've mentioned a few times now, I just can't really get out of my head of how much that's devalued stuff. So it's hard to say that this is a really good value box set when you can buy all that stuff secondhand for probably cheaper. So then we have Stormstrike for £25, which is the last one and the smallest one. And this one's a bit different. It's not just an incredibly small scaled version of the box set or Soul Wars. It's actually got a few different things in it. So for the Nighthaunt, you're going to get yourself 4 Mirmorn Banshees, and then you're going to get yourself those 4 Glaive Wraith Stalkers, which I'm pretty sure is the reason why they come in units of 4, because you only get 4 here. And then obviously you get some Stormcast stuff, which aren't exactly the same Stormcast you get from Soul Wars either. So it's a nice and little bit different. And really, I would recommend this one for someone who's very new to the game as well. If you're watching this video and you're particularly new to Age of Sigmar, I've done a few like how to start Age of Sigmar and how to get into Age of Sigmar sort of videos and learn the game. So chances are you might be a bit new. I think this is quite good because it's giving you a fair amount of models for the price of £25. Yeah, it's giving you some Stormcast ones, but like I said, if you and your buddy are trying to get into it and they like Stormcast, happy days. But if not, you can sell the Stormcast on, or to be honest, just keep them and paint them up and stuff and just use for practicing your painting. Or if you want to go a bit further, use them for basing, so you can have like a Stormcast head on a base of one of your Nighthaunt models or something like that. Or you could have one of your Mirmorn Banshees going for a Stormcast because they're ethereal, that sort of thing. And I do think, as a bit of a side note, which we'll go in more detail in a moment, that Mirmorn Banshees are particularly good, and I quite like Glaive Wraith Stalkers as well. And I'm not really stuck in that position where I'm going, oh, but you could get 10 Chainmass Hordes for £2.99 in that magazine, because they're not in this box. And like, you could get the Glaive Wraith Stalkers in the magazine as well, and the Mirmorn Banshees for cheaper than buying them Games Workshop, but not like really too much that's making this box really bad value, is what I would say with that one as well. So I think this is quite good for people who are starting Age of Sigmar in general, because you're not going to get that core rulebook, that's going to be irrelevant and all that sort of thing. I think it's very good for people who are starting Age of Sigmar, but for people who are actually in Age of Sigmar, they've already got an army or so, and they want to, dip their toes into Nighthaunt and really start building a Nighthaunt army, not a box for you. So then we go on to the auto-includes and almost auto-includes for this army. So this is my way of telling you from my own experience of playing with Nighthaunt what I automatically take in my list and what I mostly take in my list as well, as a bit of divide to try and help you guys out to know what to buy and what not to buy. So the first thing I'm going to say is that you want to get yourself a Guardian of Souls. So why do we want a Guardian of Souls? Just in case you're not too sure which one it is, you can see on the screen, but it is the guy holding the lantern with all the green smoke coming out that you get in Soul Wars, as I already mentioned. And the reason you want to get him is he is a basic wizard for your army, has a nice spell that allows you to heal back D6 wounds to one of your Nighthaunt units, and the good thing about that is if it's Chainmask Horde as example, they're only 1 wound each, but it can bring back a model for every wound it heals, so you can use them as a nice way to heal things up. What I will say though is if you're playing in the metas we're at the moment, there's a lot of high magic armies out there. Now you're not always going to fight against them, but if you go against the Lord Crake, chances are you're not going to get his magic off. But you could say about any army that wants to use magic, so I don't think that's a great example. But the other good thing this guy has up his sleeve, in case he's not casted too many spells, is wholly within range of 12 inches of him, and those Nighthaunt units that are in that range will be getting +1 to wound, which is huge. A lot of armies would kill for +1 to wound. And for an army that sometimes is hitting on 3s, sometimes it's hitting on 4s, getting that +1 to wound can make a huge difference, especially bringing that 4 down to a 3 with things like your Chainmask Horde or something like that. So he's always an auto-include in my army, at least one of them. And then we have the Spirit Torment, who is the guy with the the lock and the keys and stuff. And what I will say with him is if you have a look on the Games Workshop website, he will say he's like the jailer, which is weird because he's not a named character. And I don't really know what Games Workshop was doing. They're trying to create some narrative, but it just makes it confusing when you want to buy it. As a customer's opinion, that's what I think when I look at it, particularly if someone was new. And basically, if you buy him in that pack, it's not bad, but you're going to get your 2 Chainghasts as well, which are like his buddies, and they're the people who swing the locks I said you could make out of those Grimghast Reapers. But why is the Spirit Torment good? So the reason why he's good is because friendly Nighthaunt units wholly within 12 inches of him will be getting reroll 1s to hit, which is really good because it's the same as the command ability from the General's Handbook, which is all about attack, that allows you to reroll hit rolls of 1, but you're not spending a command point to do it. Now you may be going, all this wholly within 12, that's very small range. Now it's not the biggest range is what I would say. There's some ranges out there like wholly within 24 or something like that, but how I've been playing it is I often take blocks of 40 Chainmask Hordes, and that's 2 blocks of 40. I stick them together so it looks like a huge rectangle, and then I have a Guardian of Souls and Spirit Torment right in the middle where those 2 blocks meet, and then that actually does cover a wholly within 12 inches for both of those units. And what that means is I'm getting both of that buff on both of those units and anything else that's nearby as well, and it works really, really well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Spirit Torment. I often get him a artifact, which is Pendant of the Fell Wind, I believe it's called. So that gives other Nighthaunt units basically in the moving phase that start a move within range of him. They get an extra +3 to their movement. So everything in your Nighthaunt army is moving really fast. Bear in mind it can fly as well. So yeah, I really do like the Spirit Torment. I think he's got a lot of good play. And then we've got the Dreadblade Harrow as my last auto-include. So these Dreadblade Harrows, why are they good? Now, when you look at buying them on the website, again, a little bit confusing. You buy 2 in a pack. So it almost makes them look like it's like a multiple model unit. Wrong. They are actually heroes. So you would run them separately. And the point of a Dreadblade Harrow is basically it's got a very nice teleportation ability. Basically, instead of moving, if it's out of range of the enemy, it can teleport. And then 9 inches away from the enemy where it resets up. You can tie it into, so you can use him to teleport, and then you can use a command ability Nighthaunt get for the general, which I think it's like Spirit Commands. It's called something like that, I can't remember. And what that means is he gets to summon a unit of Nighthaunt that you've got on the board to him. It's sort of like, he's the general, and then you're summoning in these units to come back to him to defend him. And that means that they basically summon within blah blah range of him and then 9 inches away from the enemy. And why is that good? If the enemy's left an objective undefended or weakly defended, you pop this guy into teleport on range of it and he's brought his buddies, which has now meant that he's taken that objective away from the enemy. And that's how it works really nicely. So often you'll see a Dreadblade Harrow as a general in a Nighthaunt army. I've done it many a times and it's worked really well. And even if you don't, just the threat of him being able to teleport around the board is something the enemy's going to have to bear in mind and can't leave their backfield completely undefended. And then when we go on to the next bit, which is going to be the almost auto includes. So the first thing I'm going to mention is going to be the Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed. Now, why do I like the Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed? That is basically because he's a cool looking model. I'm going to have to say that. Nighthaunt is an army where I look at the whole thing and I actually like every model that's in the range. And for an army that has a fairly large range of different units, that's quite impressive. I can't say that about most armies that I like every single model in the army. And the Knight of Shrouds is one of my favourites. Why he is good is because he has a command ability that allows you to give one of your Nighthaunt units an extra attack, which is great when you look at things like a huge horde of chain rasps or things like Bladegeist Revenants, which we're going to get to in a moment. It's a really nice buff piece for your army. You'll find that your Nighthaunt army has lots of small little heroes, but they add a lot to your army in terms of buffing. Almost it's a shame when you're actually building your Nighthaunt army that you can only have 6 leaders, because if you could, you would really try and have as many leaders as you can to be able to increase the ranges of these buffs and stuff. And the Knight of Shrouds one is particularly good. You do have the Knight of Shroud who is on foot, and his one is slightly different. Basically it can +1 to hit, which is nice and very good, but I find the extra attack is more important than the +1 to hit. Because something you will be stacking this on is the Bladegeist Revenants, and that is because I honestly think the Bladegeist Revenants is probably the best unit in the army. Maybe joint best with Chain Rasp, they do a different job. But the Bladegeist Revenants, I think, is what hits the hardest. I believe they're better than Grimghast Reapers. That's my honest opinion. I think Grimghast Reapers were mainly good because people would just spam them in Legions of Nagash and be able to basically summon them back for a command point, and they were played heavily there. Unfortunately, because of that, Nighthaunt to get hit by Games Workshop raising the points for Grimghast Reapers, which was unfortunate for Nighthaunt because Nighthaunt didn't really ever abuse them. Bear in mind it was their unit. So basically Legion of Nagash stole that joy from the Nighthaunt there, and the Bladegeist Revenants have always been solid. And that's just because they've got like basic stat line of 2 attacks, 3 to hit, 3 to win, -1 rend, 1 damage. May look alright, may not really seem like anything particularly special, kind of elite infantry at that point. However, what you've got to remember is that when we talked about the Spirit Torment and we said that if you're wholly within 12 inches of him, they get to reroll 1s to hit. The Bladegeist Revenants get to reroll all failed hit rolls. So that's 1s and 2s. So now you're probably getting most of your hits turning into wounds, which is lovely. And then you're going to have your Whirling Blade ability, which essentially means that when the unit of Bladegeist Revenants charges, they get an extra attack, which is great. So now that's 3 attacks instead of those 2s. You stack the Knight of Shrouds on Ethereal Steed command ability on them, gives them that extra attack, so that's 4 attacks. And then the cherry on top of this delicious cake is the fact that the Bladegeist Revenants can retreat and charge. So you may be wondering, oh, why is that particularly good? Firstly, retreat and charge is honestly one of the best abilities in the game in terms of just like movement. It's great, it gets you around places. Bear in mind these guys can fly over the enemy screen they charged into, as an example. It's fantastic, but it's also great because as soon as your turn again, you're bogged down in combat, just retreat out, which you'll probably be able to do 9 out of 10 times, and just charge back in. And then you've got yourself an extra attack, and it costs you nothing, apart from maybe failing the charge, getting a double 1, and then needing to spend a command point to reroll it. That's very, very unlikely. Who knows? You could retreat out, then charge again, because you want to get that extra attack, but because it's Nighthaunt, you've got a 10 or more to charge, means you're attacking in the charge phase as well. So you're double attacking, and it will just work really, really well with the Nighthaunt in general. I just think that Bladegeist kind of make the most of the Nighthaunt abilities, and they really, really do play well into the synergy. So that's why I like them to be your hammer. But talking about hammers, now we're talking about anvils, because the Chain Rasp Hordes are honestly, I think, one of the best anvils Def has got, apart from Mortek Guard, because, well, I say Mortek Guard, they're not really hordes, are they? They're very elite infantry. So the Chain Rasp, you compare them to skeletons and something like that. These guys have got a 5-up unrendable save. Because they're Nighthaunt, they're unrendable. That does mean that their saves can't be buffed because they're ethereal. Basically, there are no modifiers to their saves. You can buy them pretty cheap, to be honest with you. I often run them in blocks of 40, and you can heal them back as well. And I find that they can also hurt the enemy quite a lot. The enemy, like, has got good armor saves and stuff. These guys aren't doing mortal wounds. They haven't got rend, so they're going to bounce off a bit. But they work really well, as like I mentioned before, when I put 2 blocks together and you march them up almost like a castle, moving across the board. So not just sitting at the back, because you haven't got shooting really, so you have to move up. But they can take quite a bit of a hit, and it's kind of like you're just saying to the enemy, you know, come at me a little bit. And don't get me wrong, the enemy might hit you really hard and you lose a block, but then the other block will pile in and attack. And I've had it where the enemy thought they would just like punt it and charge in like 15 Blood Warriors. Now, I'm not saying Blood Warriors are the best thing in the game, but they charge in 15 Blood Warriors, and then my Chain Rasps tear them to pieces. So I really do think they're quite good. And also just units that tend to screen and all that sort of thing. They're fast, they can fly. I really like them. And then I've also got the next one. It's Mirmorn Banshees. Now, people may disagree with me on this one, but I really like Mirmorn Banshees because they are, firstly, cheap. If you want to take them in big blocks, they're very good because they can tear apart the enemy, because you can give them, there's various ways to give them extra attacks, and their damage is D3 and their rend is -2, so it's very nice. And the other reason why I like them, because I think trying to buff them up is not always going to work, but the reason I like them is just taking in a couple units of 4 maybe just 1 unit of 4, and you can use them to summon on from the undergrounds, because the Nighthaunt army can obviously deep strike. And what that means is, instead of setting up this unit on the board, you have it in the underworld. So what that means is it comes up at the end of one of your movement phases, so you can use it to just pop up on an enemy objective that they left behind, as an example. It's a great situation to do it there. Or another thing what I like to do is pop it up turn 1, but that's because these guys actually get a plus to unbinding, and depending on how many you have in a unit, the more pluses they get to unbind. So turn 1, let's say the enemy makes you go first, or you had the choice and you did go first. You set these guys up in the enemy territory, far away enough from everyone else that can really hurt them, but within 30 inches of their heroes who want to be casting spells. And if those wizards have not got any pluses to cast or anything like that, chances are your Mirmorn Banshees might unbind them, and that'll be particularly annoying. So your enemy's going to send something over because they have to deal with them, but you're just so far away that they may not be able to get to you like on their first turn. They may have to do it the second turn, so you may get another round of trying to unbind. Or even if they can get to you in that first turn, they've still had to go and deal with your small unit instead of going up the board to where they really want to. So yeah, I do really like them, and also they're one of my favourite units in the whole army in terms of how cool they look, so I'm a big fan of them there. And then the last one we've got for an almost auto include, and it may sound a bit weird, but we've actually got a Vampire Lord, and that's because a Vampire Lord can be allied in to Nighthaunt, and he has the Deathly Invocation ability that allows you to bring back D3 models to a summonable unit, I think like within 12 of him, and he can pick 2 units to benefit from this. And when I say D3 like models or something like that, what I actually mean it's D3 wounds, and then like it can be models worth of wounds. So it could be like if you rolled a 5 or 6 for your D3, you could bring back that Spirit Host, or you could bring back 3 Chain Rasp Horde, etc. So, and I really think that works well because his command ability is like the Knight of Shrouds on Field Steed, but a bit different. But you can give that extra attack to one of your units that's in range. So it works really quite nicely, and he synergizes really nicely into your army. The reason why I left him to the end is just because with the Soulblight Gravelord release coming out, we don't know if he's going to fit in really nicely there. So I didn't want to go, right, first thing we want to have as an almost to include this guy. But he can be very, very useful for your armies. Also another wizard, can't cast the Nighthaunt spells, but can cast your Mystic Shield, or can do your Arcane Bolt, which don't sound great, but really can impact the game in those certain situations when you need it. And with that, guys, I'm actually going to come to the end of how to start collecting Nighthaunt. And if you're still hungry for more Nighthaunt stuff, I've done a huge and massive playlist on them, which I know many people have watched, as it's one of my most popular playlists I've ever done. So you can go check that out if you're like, oh, but I wanted to hear you talk about, you know, Glaive Ray Stalkers or something like that. Go check out on those videos. But what I will say is I think most units in Nighthaunt do have some play, even, shall we say, Glaive Raid Stalkers, as that's one people don't really talk about. I think even just having a unit for them, just to be in the underworlds for most of the game, and then just pop up on an enemy objective they left undefended, and you may be going, well, the enemy's not going to leave them undefended. Cool, fantastic. They wasted more points on a unit to defend an objective from a Glaive Raid Stalkers than how many points those Glaive Raid Stalkers were worth. So I do think everything has like some play in the army, and I hope today, really, in this video, I've managed to give you, in, I'll be honest, quite a long like how to start collecting video, I think, compared to like the last few maybe, but I think in this time hopefully I've given you enough help for you to know maybe how to start your Nighthaunt army. And if like you still want to ask those questions, like I said at the start of the video, put them in the comments down below and I'll be happy to help you out best I can. And also to people who experience with Nighthaunt and you think, oh, I said something, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, or actually I think you can do this instead. Honestly, I'm not going to say don't tell me that. Please put it in the comments below, because we're all here to learn. I'm not the best Nighthaunt player in the world, but I am an experienced one, and I wanted to try and help people get into Nighthaunt. So if you think you can do that with your experience as well, put it in the comments and everyone will be happy to see it. So yes guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that video, and if you did so, all I'm going to ask for you to do is please smash that like button, that subscribe button, that bell notification button, 3 buttons all next to each other. I always ask people to do this, and the reason why I do is because, like I say, it's free to do so, but it massively helps out the channel. Basically, it says to YouTube that people are enjoying this video, and it's going to try and help not hide it in the darkest corners of YouTube, but hopefully more people will see it, suggest the video and stuff, and it really does help out the channel. And it also, as a side note, shows to me that people are interested in how to start collecting Nighthaunt. So maybe it makes me want to revisit Nighthaunt at some point, or just continue this how to start collecting video series. So please, if you did that, that'd be a huge, massive help. What I will also say as well is that if you would like to support the channel that step further, like I said, I have got a YouTube membership and I have got Patreon. So what this means is that you can go onto the YouTube membership, which basically if you click the little join button next to the subscribe button, it will allow you to basically support the channel by giving like just like anything from like £1 a month, which might sound small but massively goes towards keeping the channel going. Or if you go to my Patreon down below, you can give something as little as $1 a month, which when I say my Patreon down below, it's top of the description for this video. And all that support goes straight back into the channel. Essentially, you don't make, shall we say, money being a YouTube content creator, but any money that is given to the channel really does help keep it going, essentially. It really does help to justify the money I spend on the channel and also the time I put into the channel as well. So if you could do that, I'd be hugely appreciative. And on that note, I want to say a massive shout out again to those people who decided to support the channel and are the reason I can continue to do this. So that's going to be firstly my lovely and wonderful Morgasts, which I've already mentioned are my top supporters. They just honestly just keep on giving towards the channel and really can't thank them enough. And that's going to be the fantastic Johnathan H, thank you so much. Filq, the wonderful, thank you as well. And then the amazing Bleed Red and Christopher G. Thank you so much for your continued support. It really is helping out the channel, and I don't know what I'd do without you. So thank you so much for that support. And also to my vampires as well, who I mentioned do support the channel in a large way. So that's going to be Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, David A, Ronni H, Doug P, SpareBear, Christopher H, and Northdrop. So all of you guys, thank you so much for supporting me on that tier. And like I said, Northdrop is a new one, so thank you so much for deciding to support the channel. It really does make a huge difference. I'm glad you decided to. And then as well my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, Christopher C, James S, Steve T, and Robin S. Thank you as well so much. Everyone, all of you guys together are the reason I can continue doing this. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to try and help people get into Age of Sigmar, like I say, and to support their journey through this fantastic game that we all love, and to try and spread this community. And what I'd say, guys, if you can support in that way, absolutely fantastic. But if you can't, though, no worries at all. I would ask, though, if you could like, subscribe, and bell notification, because they are free. But above anything else, I'm just really glad that you came and checked out this video today. I hope you enjoyed it. Any more questions, leave them down below, as I've already said. And also, don't forget to join the conversation in the Discord, which you will find a link to it in the description of this video. And feel free to ask me or any other people in the Discord as well. Any questions, something like that. We've got a lot of new people who joined, and it's really good to see a lot of people getting into Age of Sigmar. But with all that aside, guys, like I said, just really glad that you came and checked out this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And remember until next time to wear gloves, wear a mask, for God's sake, stay hygienic. So that means that by the time we can actually game again, maybe you'll be able to try out the Nighthaunt on the table. Could be pretty cool. But more importantly than any of that is remember until next time that Nagash is all. and all is one in Nagash.